well for Magnus if he's going to make blunders and bullet.
Well, as LL Cool J said to Merriam-Webster Dictionary yesterday, don't call it that. It's not a comeback. Arjun's been here for years. He may be young, but he is super strong. And he's been around these parts before. He's played the top players in the world. And I think, Denny, kind of what we're getting at is that when Arjun just won that game, it wasn't like, oh, he got fortunate because Magnus miscalculated. It was Arjun outplaying Magnus. From the start, Magnus played some offbeat opening. Then Arjun gained the upper hand in the endgame. And look at Magnus, by the way, right now. He's like kind of slapping the air. Seems like something's wrong in his camp.
Yeah, we know we have the players on camera in all kinds of different ways, fair play proctoring all over the place. But we've been able to see Magnus. He was mostly in his chair eating at the break, if you're wondering. But yeah, he right now looks a little like didn't like his position or didn't like the start or something there.
But to my eyes, his position looks quite nice. He's got double fianchettos, and both players do. And Magnus, he's looking towards that center. The d4 pawn can be captured, but do you want to release the tension this early? That remains to be seen. So, Danny, as I look at the clock, about even. As I look at the position, dynamic, not symmetrical. So we got the hanging pawn structure. Would you rather have the white or black side?
Big question. I actually love playing hanging pawn positions because they're just fun and aggressive. So I probably, again, side with Arjun. I like his openings. I like his style. And here comes activity. Knight's on e5. Can I put my other knight on b5? At the same time, just want to call out the other side. Every exchange that happens from here on out, advantage Magnus. That's the problem with hanging pawns, is they are targets and weaknesses. So you got to prove your activity, or Magnus will grind you down.
Such an important point that if this knight on e5, for example, gets traded for, say, this knight that just went to b8, then the c4 pawn is already in black sight. So we look at this position. We like the potential activity that white gets, but we dislike the pawns are hanging pawns. They're loose. They can be attacked. And queen f3, I don't really see why it deserves a question mark. It looks perfectly reasonable to me, but I think black can consider a simple development move.
I think that might even be it. If the knight is traded, c4 is weak. Now, you can't play knight fd7. Watch out for f7. But Magnus first plays a6 to stop knight to b5. What a move. And that is the best move, apparently, unless Robert sneakily threw that exclamation point on the board. I think the computer likes it.
Knight d7 was a blunder. I'll show that ever so quickly. The knight d7, the kind of instinctual move, knight b5, and the queen's under attack. It goes to b8 and knight c6. Fork City, Forktown, USA. And that's winning in exchange for white.
Very nice. Okay, so that's why Magnus plays a6. Heads up on the tactics, but immediately probably knight bd7 is coming next, or even knight to c6. They're both possible moves here because all black wants, as we've highlighted, simplify, and then those pawns become weak in the center.
And you see that Arjun's in a deep think. This is what he cannot afford to do. He's down a minute, and if we're looking at the position, it's not like Magnus has done all that much. He's not posing these severe questions, but I think Arjun looks at the position like, well, how am I supposed to get out of this? And I think what he just did is excellent. You see the exclamation point, Danny, that wasn't me. He is trying to liquidate so he's not in danger of losing this game.
I think it's super smart, especially given what was happening off the board, right, on the clock. It was getting away from him. I think a draw here is not a bad result, given that he won the last game, that being Arjun. So keep this thing close within a couple games. Don't overpress here if it's gotten away from you.
And we see mass liquidation, all trades here. And look at this, by the way. It looks like there was a bishop hanging on b2, but no, rook takes d5, c takes, and the rook on c6 was under attack. So everything's off, Danny. This looks like I want to call it a clear draw, but we've seen both of these players win seemingly even endgames.
Yeah, it's true. We've had a lot of games today that entered an endgame with an equal eval bar, and somebody came away with a victory. So we shouldn't assume that at all. If you're Magnus, I think you're the one pushing a teeny bit just because white's pawns are slightly split, and we see that's kind of what he's trying to work on right now, getting surgical over there.
Well, I thought you were going to hit me with the James McAvoy reference after telling me about
Marcellus Wallace. Marcellus Wallace bringing pliers and a blowtorch. Let's get surgical.
Hey, you told me it was split, so we both have our pop culture references in mind. So we see this position here. And the c4 and a3 pawns, these isolated pawns, the split pawns, that means they can be targeted, but Arjun's doing just enough. He is defending, not by protecting the pawn, but by attacking the pawn on b6. So when all is said and done on c4, everything gets traded off. b6 drops as well. This position is level objectively, but I'm looking at the clock, Danny. Arjun's down to
Yep.
24 seconds.
And Magnus senses
Oh,
that he can
no.
grab the. Wait. Was King of. I guess it's still a draw, but King of 3. Did he just blunder that? I'm
I think
wondering.
that he just made a move because he needed to do something, and it ends up dropping this pawn. And I don't care what the evaluation says. Drawing this game with 20 seconds on your clock against anybody, but especially Magnus, that seems very difficult. And Black at some point
Yep.
will try to get the king around. And here it comes.
Well, we probably won't have time to highlight or turn this into a rook ending lesson, but okay, what you just said is there's one plan. Black brings the king over to the queen side. The other plan is exactly what could happen with g5 here. You try to open up a second target or a second pass pawn. That's what Magnus is going for. Objectively, again, this should be a draw. The eval bar says so, but as Robert said, drawing the game with only 10 seconds is another matter.
And here the king. Oh, I see
Oh,
going to e3
oh.
made sense. And both sides are making these little mistakes at this stage. The black king at e7. How could that be the wrong move? You ask. I honestly don't know. Where else would that have gone?
How could that? I wonder if it was rook a1 to just get. Okay, it doesn't matter because it's somehow it transposed per the human approach to the position. So forget what the computer says. That's my vote right now. It was a miss by some tempo, but the idea is very clear. Arjun's king is stuck to the f2 pawn, but at some point that black king is going to come in and hide behind the rook and the pawn and try to make a new queen on a1.
And also, when your opponent has 2.6 seconds left, you can afford to make
this
an inaccuracy. Here it comes. Here comes the black king this way.
Wow. Spots the g2 square, 0.3 seconds for Arjun with that move.
And just a few checks, but it's over. The a pawn reaches a2, and the black king comes to b1, and that's that.
Arjun almost catches Magnus in a pre-move slip, but the best players in these bullet matches, or bullet moments, if you will, they don't pre-move as much as you'd think. They're just fast, and they wait until they know their move. Magnus Carlsen gets the lead back to 3 games.
And that's the benefit of that 1 second increment. That bonus time means you don't have to pre-move the way you did in the Bullet Chess Championship. And, we know that Alireza Firouzja can do it without increment. With increment, he'll be in Paris. And now it's looking like Magnus Carlsen will join him and Hans Niemann. But of course, there's still plenty of match remaining as we have 11 minutes left here in this 3 minute plus 1 second increment time, which will end Danny. After that, there still is the entire bullet portion. So when you're thinking from Arjun's perspective, every single game against Magnus is difficult. But realistically, is 3 points already too much? Does he must get this down to 2?
I'm gonna say no at this time, and not just for the choosing the dramatic storyline that I think Arjun can come back. Magnus has made some blunders today, Robert. Like in the time scrambles, we've seen him blunder pieces. I mean, even a younger rook with bishop e5. People who missed the game review from a few moments ago, like. I guess what I'm saying is Magnus has been dominant at times, Magnus-esque, as far as his ability to grind out those small advantages, Robert, the Magnus that we all know. But he's also made a lot of blunders in time pressure. So given that Bullet is such an animal that can be wild, I don't think it's over just yet. I think he needs it to be within 2 or 3 games, but I don't think it's over.
Okay. So you heard it from Danny. He thinks that given the time scrambles, how Arjun has actually been able to win a few of them, it does seem like he will have chances as long as he keeps it within that 2-3 game margin. Magnus will be the favorite, especially if it's a lead, but Arjun can get it done. And in this position, Danny, Arjun's just down so much time. Like he's down almost a minute, and we have what seems to be a pretty normal looking position.
Agreed. And what was the law of the universe? And we were talking about, I think Don and I were talking about in the Grishik Firouzja match, where people will take as much time as they have. Not that they should play faster and appreciate the time pressure is nobody's friend. But I think in the bullet, I'm still giving Arjun a chance when we get bullet, just because of what I've seen with some blunders from Magnus, and I think he will play faster. All of that said, I totally agree with you. He's just consistently down on the clock right now.
And we have a position where white has a pair of bishops on an open board. There's an isolated pawn for black, but you have to appreciate black's activity. The last few moves have been helpful. There's a bishop on e5. Pawn d4 comes to mind. Of course, bishop takes b2. And the immediate position is a problem that white has to look out for. And Magnus, thanks to his lead on the clock, is sitting and spending time. And hello, I guess this doesn't work for some reason.
Because The queen is undefended at the end of knight takes f6. Pesky tactics. I'm using that word pesky too much today. Don't know why. But f4 is
Oh,
required there because f2 is hanging. And bishop
oh,
d5 is still on the agenda. Oh my gosh. You can't even take the bishop.
this is just nasty tactical awareness. You see that Arjun down under a minute and a half. Magnus is the one who's like has his hand on his head, but this position looks very promising for white. It's an open board, bishop pairs, light square control. That bishop can take on c6 at some moment, but it's staring in both directions. That knight not as great a participant at the moment.
Yeah, agreed. And
Oh,
okay, apparently the advantage is getting worse here.
there was
But
this. He missed it. Just to go back,
oh,
sorry.
bishop f5, bishop e6. Oh yeah, duh.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
bishop
right here
f5 won the exchange.
on the spot.
Yeah. Well, it hasn't been a perfect day in terms of tactics for either player. That's kind of what we're saying there. And again, we're not taking this has been an amazing day. The chess has been exciting and there's been some off the charts technique at times, but there's been some misses and Magnus missed a tactic there.
He did indeed. And now we have a knight on the rim that's not looking too dim. That knight is about to enter the game via c4, b3. So for the looseness of black's position, the king on g8, there's some air in front of it. The light square's under white's control. I have to say that Arjun, I mean, he's hanging in there. And also the time situation, that's getting close to level.
Agreed. And that pass d pawn is, well, I mean, it's irritating. If you don't take advantage of the light squares, we'll see if there are some tactics here for Magnus. That pass d pawn, when that knight comes to c5, will get going.
I'm looking at queen f3, but knight d2 comes to mind as a response. You see my idea. I'm simply trying to get my bishop to d5. Queen b5 can be met by knight c5, protecting b7, attacking e4, but there could be rook c1 stuff. I think things are getting very spicy here, and he allows knight
Yeah,
c5,
it's
Danny.
scary.
There might be things on the c file.
Yeah, he allowed it. He plays f5. I still like your queen.
Ooh.
Oh, wait. Oh, the knight's hanging. Bishop takes g6. Duh.
Danny, I'm just going to say it. When Magnus is playing these kinds of games and
Yeah.
Arjun is just handing him leads on the clock, I just don't see how it happens. I don't see how it happens for Arjun. It's just too much to overcome.
Well, a 4-game lead is no one's friend. Not fun. If you're Arjun or Geisy, he will have a chance. There will be, I'm guessing, at least one more 3-minute game before we head to the bullet portion. So buckle up, everybody. The show's not over yet. But I agree. This is getting out of control.
Oof.
Oh, wow. That's the simple move. That's why the computers like white. The queen will fall. The d4 pawn is hanging. Arjun down to 20 seconds on the clock. A 4-game lead is around the corner for Magnus Carlsen.
And for Arjun, the next game is so critical because he's about to be down by 4 points. This position is hopeless. There's a pin on the G file. D4 is loose.
Yeah.
That is a decent try. I mean, even rook takes D4 here comes to mind because rook C1 can be met by rook to D1. White will be up at least a pawn. But look at Magnus searching for better, as he should.
Yeah, doesn't even want to invite the queen ending, which could happen. And it is a winning queen and pawn ending. But, okay, he keeps the rooks on the board because he didn't want that mass or full exchange.
Check.
But Arjun's going to play rook c1 anyway, I think. Yeah,
Rook, queen
we're going to
C3.
get the queen ending. Oh, queen c3. Very nice. Okay, never mind. Oh, queen c3 is going to come. Oh, no, he doesn't go for it.
Well, maybe this rook is just in a bad spot.
He's got the crossfire check for the win.